What's up, everyone? This is the UFC 252 recap. It's actually my first official UFC recap, so we're kind of popping a cherry here tonight. It's very exciting. FYI, just full disclosure, I am a newer UFC fan. So to all the diehards and the devout UFC fans, please know that I'm not here trying to be an expert. Don't eat me alive in the comments. I come in peace. I mainly tell sex jokes. So this is just a very casual overview of UFC 252. First one I wanted to talk about, obviously, Marlon Chito Vera versus Sugar Sean O'Malley. If you don't watch a ton of UFC, you would still know who Sean O'Malley is because he's the guy that looks like Sideshow Bob from The Simpsons had sex with a bag of Skittles. And it's fine. I'm here for it. It's 2020. Nothing matters. But this was a very hyped fight. And I'm going to be honest with you. In my novice opinion, I thought it was going to be a blowout. I thought that, O'Malley was going to wipe the floor with Chito. I was so confident in that belief that I actually had two memes about it that I had created before the fight even started, just two in the chamber, ready to go. And then the fight ends in round one. Now, I've never experienced premature ejaculation, but I have to imagine that the emotions I was feeling in that moment are akin to what a guy feels like when he comes too quickly. Just overall not good and a very abrupt end to something that you thought was going to be a lot of fun and enduring. So it ended in round one. O'Malley suffered an injury. Something, when you were watching it live, obviously we could tell that something happened to his leg. It kind of looked like, when you put that first leg out of the Uber when you're drunk, or if you're like a baby giraffe and you're just trying to walk for the first time. It's like your leg is not sure itself if it can do the job that you're asking it to do. It just was uncertain. Something was weird. It was wobbly. And it turns out that it was a rolled ankle, which I thought was kind of weird because to me, a rolled ankle is like an old man injury. A rolled ankle is the kind of thing that happens to your father when he jumps up too quickly in the middle of the night to go use the bathroom because his prostate is acting up and he messes up his ankle. That's what I feel like those are the kind of people who get rolled ankles, not young UFC fighters. But it happened nonetheless, and, I think Chito saw it, he took advantage of it, and he won, by technical knockout in the first round. Herb Dean obviously stopped the fight after realizing that, O'Malley could barely stand up straight because of his leg. I don't know, and of course, everybody always gets mad if the fight stopped too early, they stopped the fight too late. In this particular case, and again, newer fan, but I don't understand what some people expected Herb Dean to do. If a fighter can't stand, how are we going to watch the rest of the fight? He's not Lieutenant Dan. We're not going to throw him in a wheelchair and have him just fight, with both hands. That's not how it works. So I saw some people complaining about that. I just honestly wasn't sure what the alternative solution was. Meanwhile, Chito is like the real life version of Donnie from the Wild Thornberrys. Like that man is small but mighty. He's very scary. He's like a spider monkey on like crystal meth. I don't know. He's just like here, there. He's everywhere. He's fast. He's quick. He was trying to climb out of the cage at one point and yell at Joe Rogan after the fight. So regardless of how you feel about him, even if you don't like him as a fighter, it's hard to argue that he's not rather entertaining when he's in the octagon. I personally want to see a rematch. I know people are already talking about it. If for no other reason than I want to feel like I got my $65 worth. We are on the verge of a very big recession. Dana has not lowered the price of the fights. And I just feel like, if I'm going to be giving up a week's, worth of my food budget to see a fight, I want to feel like I got my money's worth. So again, for that reason alone, I would like to see a rematch between these two in the future. Also, I'm not a fighter, but I do have an ego the size of Texas. And if I beat somebody, I want to know that I beat them, at their best. Because if, I don't, somebody's going to say something like, oh, if he didn't roll his ankle, he would have beat you. If you didn't poke him in the eye, he would have beat you. If he didn't eat gluten before the fight, he would have beaten you. And it's like, no, I basically, when I win a fight, I don't want there to be any ifs, ands, or buts. So even if I'm Chito, if somebody was like, oh, I want to have a rematch and I'm confident in my abilities that I'm still number one, why would I say no? So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the future, but that's my vote. I definitely want to see them go up against each other again and see if it's the same result or not. Of course, obviously the huge fight, not just of the weekend, but really of the other careers. Stipe Miocic, which, sorry guys, I always fuck up the Balkan names, and Daniel Cormier, third fight, heavyweight title fight. Again, I'm a newer fan. So for me, before this fight even happened last week, I went back and watched not only the first two fights, but I watched, the fights they had with other people. I, tried to get their backstory. They were doing a ton of promos all week, and it was really interesting. And then I too felt very excited, to see what happened. I don't want to say that the fight was overhyped. I think the hype was, warranted, but like a lot of things, because it was so amped up, it did feel a little underwhelming. Not that it was a bad fight, but again, it just sort of feels like you were expecting this huge thing, and then it was just kind of like, ugh, whatever. Again, I think that's just like the risk you take in anything when you hype up an event so much. Of course, the eye poke heard around the world or seen around the world. As somebody who used to have a fear of putting contacts in my eye and gouging my eye out, what happened, to DC was basically my living nightmare. That eye, I saw somebody made a joke on Twitter that he looked like Forrest Whitaker after the fight, which was terrible, but also hysterical and very accurate. It did not look good. And I know it's an accident. I know that it happens, but I mean, shit. Phalanges are dangerous. Okay, I have like these thoughty acrylics, so I know firsthand that with great power comes great responsibility, and you got to be careful because the eye poke, like who knew that the eye poke was going to be like the big thing that kind of turned the fight around. So I know that DC is out there saying this is his last fight, he's done, it's over with. I am not convinced. I think that if he lost without the eye poke happening, I would believe that it's his last fight. But I think that, again, as somebody who has a big ego, what would happen to me is a year, 2 years down the road, there'd be that little voice in my head saying, well, maybe if you didn't get poked in the eye, you would have won. And then that thought and that little voice would be the thing that would have me coming back 2-3 years later wanting to fight again. Again, no guarantees, but that's just kind of my feelings. And I don't think we've seen the last of him. I also noticed that there was kind of a weird, somber mood post-fight. I think it has something to do with the fact that a lot of the commentators, really love DC. A lot of them are like personal friends of his. So normally after a fight, it's just kind of like, the analysis and they're commenting on it. This all like sort of felt like everybody's grandmother had died. It was kind of like a weird mood. It was very palpable, and even if you watched a lot of like the pre-fight promos and all the different shows they were doing like leading up to the fight, so much of it focused on DC. Like there really wasn't a whole lot of attention paid to Stipe, whether you agree with it or not, but I feel like I learned a lot about DC and there was like not much mention of Stipe. And my favorite thing about the guy is that he's got this like intense, I think it's Croatian name, and he looks like Drago's brother. And then he opens his mouth and it's like, oh, it's just a white dude from Cleveland. Like you think you're going to be listening to like Vladimir Putin at the presser, and it's like, no, it's just a guy with, from Ohio with a vaguely Midwestern accent. I don't know. I always like somebody who surprises me. In other news, this is my favorite part, Pornstache, John Anik is back. And that man is really leaning into the 70s anchorman look as of late. And again, it's 2020, nothing matters. I'm here for it. I would like to make mention that I was the first one who pointed out the Pornstache joke. And I know that because before I made my meme, I checked Twitter and I checked Google to see if anybody else, had written it or was talking about it, and nobody had. And then ever since my meme came out almost a month ago, two very well-known UFC podcasters who shall remain nameless or talking about Pornstache in their podcast. So it could have been parallel thinking, but I'm thinking theft. Anywho, something was amiss with our boy Chael Sonnen during the post show. He was, if you didn't see it, you should go back and watch it, because that man was red in the face. He was talking a mile a minute, and it just left me feeling like, okay, yeah, cocaine's one hell of a drug for sure. I don't actually think it was cocaine, like legally, I have to say that, but honestly, most likely what I think it was like probably like, you know, an energy drink or one of Joe Rogan's On It supplements that they were sampling backstage gone wrong. Like, I don't know, he may have tried some Alpha Brain and it was too much, because my man's was hyped during the post show. Again, if you didn't see it, it's worth a watch, because I don't think I was the only person who thought something strange was going on. Listening to him talk and speaking, you know, 40 words per second honestly gave me more anxiety than anything during the fights did. So let's just 100% never give him any B12 supplements backstage going forward. But yeah, that about wraps it up for my first recap. My goal was to be under 15 minutes, which I think I hit. Again, let me know what you think in the comments. I know I said go easy on me, but you can be a little bit mean if you want. I feel like a certain level of hazing, especially, you know, in UFC fandom, is allowed and probably encouraged, especially in the beginning. So by all means, let me have it. Let me know what you think. And watch out for those On It supplements. Also, take a note from Chael's book. You know, 1 minute you're just trying to get focused at work, and the next minute you're in HR's office having to take a drug test. They're just too powerful, you know? They can land you a $200 million Spotify deal. Who knows what else they can do. But yeah, that's it for this time. So until next time, kids, the twins and I bid you a farewell, and we will see you. If we don't do a recap for next weekend's fights, we will definitely do one for UFC 253, which is happening at the end of September. So until next time, guys.